A fantastic country with beautiful jungles. And for those of you who don't know, it's in Central America, and we work in the northern region of Guatemala, being the Biosphere Maya Reserve. A very, very nice and intense jungle. And so, like I told you, Guatemala is in Central America, a very rich region in terms of wildlife. And just a little bit of background info over the country. It's like 11 million people. 80% of the country is forest, so very impressive. It has a very big heritage in terms of Mayan culture. That's where they stayed until about 1600. They have a very, very different and interesting landscape, from sea level to 4,000 meters high, with a lot of volcanic activity as well. And that shows in this picture, for example. You have the left side of the country is the Pacific side, which has impressive volcanoes, really nice landscapes, very dramatic. And on the other hand, you have like a really Caribbean East Coast, which is beautiful. So a lot of different types of scenery in a very small country. But we're going up north to the jungle of Petén, which is a border with Mexico, and it's a fantastic region. So this is more or less the map of where we worked, and you have, of course, to get there by very little transport and little airplanes, and it's really difficult to reach. And it's about 30,000 square kilometers of primary forest. I mean, that's huge, and it's a very rich place. And one of the first times that I went there was just when COVID hit. So it was a very strange experience because we had empty airports, nobody there, and you seem to be completely alone in all these places. So then you take, of course, very basic transport, and you reach these places only by boat and with local people, of course. But the way to get there is fantastic. And like I told you, it's a really rich region in terms of cultural heritage. So you have the very famous site of Tikal, right? Which are, it's the best site for Mayan ruins. And what's really interesting about these Mayan ruins as well is that animals, in all the time that these ruins were there, animals learned to live together with people. So whenever you walk through these ruins, you can really see a lot of wildlife as well. Like, for example, this little fox, which is beautiful, but they just walk on the ruins, and it's also something really special to experience. And when you get on the top of the ruins, of course, you have magnificent views over the jungle. So very, very cool. But of course, my mission to go to the jungle of Petén was my fascination for big cats. And so I went on a mission, and I said, okay, I really want to photograph, or try to see at least, big cats in the jungle. And so my main objective was these three species: jaguar, puma, and ocelot. They are like the three biggest cats of the jungle. There are some other smaller ones, like margay cats and jaguarundis as well, which are also very beautiful but very difficult to see. And of course, these three are also very complicated to see because the jungle is extremely dense. And some people might ask, okay, why do you go to Guatemala? Because, I mean, there are other places in the world that are quite famous already for seeing big cats, like the Pantanal in Brazil. But whenever I'm looking for these animals, I want to have like a different experience, and I don't want to be like in the middle of a whole lot of other people. And when people go to the Pantanal in Brazil, it's quite easy to see jaguars, but you see it in this way. So this is not the kind of experience that I want to have, because it's just mass tourism. They see one jaguar and everybody comes there with all their boats and stuff. So, I mean, I decided to go somewhere else and do it in a more difficult way, but maybe a nicer way. Okay. So we're off to the jungle. Very, very difficult circumstances, very, very hot, very humid. So, I mean, for yourself and your equipment, it's extremely difficult. Everything is wet all the time, you're sweating, it's really complicated, but anyway. And when you go into the jungle, the first thing when you look for cats is looking for tracks, because that's the way you find them. So you walk on little paths in the forest, and just to show you how dense this forest is, this is the kind of environment you work in. I mean, it's crazy because you don't see anything. It's so incredibly dense, this forest, and you can imagine that going to look for cats in something like this is extremely difficult. So that's why you need local people. So whenever you go there, we speak with local rangers that know more or less where forest workers or other people have seen something in the jungle, and they keep track of that. So you need to speak to these people to know more or less where animals are, which is very interesting. So once you have that info, you go looking on these tracks and you look for signs of the animal. And so this is what it looks inside for people who are a little bit more technical. So it's a big professional camera with a transmitter on the top, and it transmits signals to flashes that you attach to trees. Okay. And then you, with a motion sensor, and when the animal comes by, you hope that it goes. So this is what it looks like when it's set up. The red line is where you hope that the animal will pass by, and you put the camera, a motion sensor, and a few flashes. And of course, it's always the same game, waiting and hoping that it works. This is another setting. So you see where I put this camera, because you have like a wet area behind and then a trail. And again, we put flashes and the camera and the motion sensor. But you can leave it there for like maybe 1 or 2 nights, and then after you have to change the batteries and everything. And so, I mean, it's not as convenient as a little automatic camera, so it's much more complicated. And you might wonder, okay, you did this for a couple of times, and what's the result now? So I traveled to Guatemala for 3 years. I did 6 trips, about 40,000 kilometers. And with these big camera traps, well, what do you think? Did I get it? Yeah, they always say, you know, you professional people, you always get your results because you know everything. Well, after 3 years, this was the only picture I had. Okay, so I have to disappoint you. I still don't have a camera trap image of a jaguar. That means how difficult it is. Okay, I mean, with these little automatic cameras, it's easier because they stay a long time. But with a big professional one, it's really, really, really complicated. So yeah, it's still a disappointment. But I mean, we have still good images of cats, but on little cameras. And of course, I was so desperate to see and photograph a jaguar in real life that. In Guatemala it didn't work, but I had my lucky moments a couple of weeks ago where I went to Bolivia, and completely different country, but there I had my very first encounter with a wild jaguar, and I was very, very excited and happy with this picture. So this was for me like a very big present after all these years of trying. And this is maybe an unusual picture of a jaguar because you have a cornfield behind, which also shows the problem of these animals, because they live in an area in Bolivia where there's a lot of deforestation and everything is turned into cornfields. So quite problematic. But anyway, the resume of all this effort that I'm explaining today is that wildlife photography is just work hard, play hard, and never give up. I mean, I will go back to Guatemala and try again, and try again, and try again, until it works. So I just wanted to say one little word about the fact that I'm going every year to Guatemala with my company. If anyone would be interested in joining, you can come. There's fantastic things to see. I won't promise you any cats, because you see how difficult it is. But anyway, we go there every year. And if you have any questions on Sony gear or whatever, you can go to the stand of Sony, and I'll be there as well if you want. And I hope, yeah, you enjoyed this little presentation about cats. So thank you very much.